Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining Tourism Australia and our partners for the 6th in our series of North America industry updates. We appreciate it's been a few weeks since we've had one of these updates, but we look forward to talking to you today, and we're joined by a couple of great partners. My name is Chris Allison. I'm Head of Commercial Partnerships with the Tourism Australia team based in Los Angeles. I'm just going to run through a couple of housekeeping items, walk you through the agenda for today, and then I'm going to introduce Jane, who has a few words for us. In terms of the agenda today, we'll be hearing from Jane shortly, and then we're using the opportunity today and over the coming weeks to hear from our state partners. So today we'll be hearing from David Evans from Visit Victoria, and we'll also be hearing from Ernst Flash from South Australia. We'll have time for some questions at the end, so if you do want to ask Dave or Ernst or Jane any questions today, we'll cover those off at the end. You can pop any of your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll circle back on those at the end of the session today. So with that said, I'm pleased to pass over now to Jane Whitehead, our VP for the Americas, who has a few words to share before we introduce our speakers today. Thanks, Jane.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining this webinar. We truly appreciate your continued engagement and support and hope you are well. As you know, in a few weeks' time, we will be holding our first ever virtual Australia Marketplace. And while we would much rather be catching up with you all in person, we look forward to many of you joining that. In the lead up to that event, we will be using these webinars over the coming weeks to invite all of our state and territory partners to provide an update on the latest developments in their state. Today, of course, we have Dave and Ernst joining us. So Tourism Australia will provide a broader market update on October 20, just before Marketplace kicks off. We know the question that all of you continue to have is when will Australia's borders reopen? Unfortunately, at this point, we don't have an answer on that. But in the meantime, we are continuing to work on maintaining interest and engagement from our target consumer. And with continued investment in search, social media and content to help inspire and plan future trips. We also are continuing to evolve our virtual industry engagement program, and we'll have more to share on all of that on the 20th. So look forward to joining you then. Now I'd like to invite Dave, Regional Manager of the Americas for Visit Victoria, to join to provide an update on what's happening in Victoria. Thank you, Dave.
Perfect, thank you, Jane. I'll just get my screen up here, just give me 1 second. So thank you to everyone for joining us today. It's good to have a chance to talk to you guys about what's going on in Melbourne and Victoria, because if you have been following along at home, you know, of all the states, you know, Victoria has been hit the hardest throughout and has been making headlines for various reasons, one being the very strict measures that have been put in place for people all across Melbourne and certainly into regional Victoria as well. So I just wanted to touch on that really quickly as to, you know, where everything is at. And, you know, at the moment, it's, as I said, no secret that the government has introduced very, very strong measures to slow the spread of coronavirus. And, you know, while I think it's important to also know that while there are cases in Victoria and Australia, the cases, you know, obviously quite low compared with many other cities and countries around the world. And I think that's what's quite striking about the level of the lockdown that Melbourne has gone through in Victoria. So, you know, what the government is saying to the public, and they're trying to communicate as frequently as they can, is that they're taking it extremely seriously and trying to protect everybody and keep everybody safe, which, you know, is admirable when you compare it to certain places across the globe as well. And, you know, seeing spikes continue. And the good news is that it is showing to have worked. So, you know, a few weeks ago, the Washington Post nicknamed our Premier Dictator Dan, which he wasn't too pleased about. But as of today, when I was strolling through the news, CNN has actually looked at it and said that, you know, this is something where, you know, the level of restrictions put in place have shown to be very effective. There's a couple of other places around the world who have shown you know, similar ways to manage it and so on. So, you know, at this point, people are quite pleased that the cases are coming down. It seems to be getting under control, and it looks like that they'll be able to move through to the different stages as we move through. So as an example, stage 3 in regional Victoria, it was about a week ago, they entered step 3. So that actually allows region to region travel. And that's been one of the biggest issues for us compared to some of the other states and territories is without the ability for people to leave Melbourne or travel around regional Victoria, it really limits the opportunity for any type of promotion to get the economy stimulated at all for our hospitality industry. So, now that you can actually get around regional Victoria, there's no more stay-at-home requirements. You can have things like groups up to 10 people gather outdoors, cafes, restaurants, hotels can open again. They have some strange things like 2-hour limit on dining. There's, some sport coming back for juniors and, masks are mandatory. So, it's a good step. It's a really positive step. And they haven't had any new cases in regional Victoria for a little bit now. So that's showing to work. In Melbourne, it's been a little bit more drastic for them. So if they actually try and leave Melbourne and go out to regional Victoria, the fines are up to $5,000 and have been policed pretty heavily. So it really is quite strict. But so at the moment, it's still shopping for essentials. You can exercise outside with one other person permitted for 2 hours a day, caregiving and so on. But that is a very strict lockdown, which our head office are experiencing at the moment. But it looks like within a week or maybe a little bit sooner if things go well, that they may have a chance to move through to the next step in the restrictions and ease some of those things going on, which we see as a positive outcome. And I guess, at the end of the day, the international borders aren't open. So what is vital is that Australia, and all of the destinations really in the South Pacific come out of this showing that safety and security of their people is paramount and that it has been managed effectively. And I think, for the most part, that's been done pretty well. Things like JobKeeper, this $3 billion support package that the Victorian government has announced that includes, cash grants, tax relief for businesses, cash flow support, licensed venues. There's a $251 million fund for that. And also some money coming to us for our intrastate campaign, which is Click for Vic, which I'll talk about next. But that brings the level of support from the government up to around $6 billion. So they are really trying to get behind the Victorian people to try and preserve as many jobs as they can. Talking with operators, things like JobKeeper have allowed them to retain staff, to allow them to continue to get benefits, to be able to get some income coming through and stay afloat. I think it's all just a question of, how long can that be sustained? As different iterations of JobKeeper and so on come through, how is it going to change and evolve, and how's that going to affect our industry? And fortunately, at the moment, we've only had, a few casualties here and there, but nothing too bad at the moment. So we're very hopeful that our industry can hold out a little bit longer, get this interstate travel going in Australia, and then ultimately, we really do need international travel to return. So look, the government's doing everything they can to try and support, all of its people, but particularly the industry as well. So as I mentioned, Click for Vic, so that's our intrastate campaign. So while people weren't really able to move around at all, what we did from head office is about getting the best of Victoria delivered to your door. So anything from restaurants, wineries, farms, fashion, design stores, galleries, bookstores, and so on, had an opportunity to be part of this campaign. So it's really about trying to highlight those amazing innovators, the makers and creators, there's phenomenal gin distilleries and breweries and bread makers and so on all across the state. So this went beyond your traditional tourism experiences, and it was really just dedicated to Victorians to try and go out and support Melbourne companies as well as regional Victorians, say, buy local, go out and get some artisan crafts and that type of thing and stimulate the economy that way. And it has shown to be pretty successful so far. It's definitely a consideration conversion campaign before we get to the point of interstate travel, which again, I think what's been great about this is it's drawn out some amazing personalities and these innovative people, as I said, that can obviously be very useful as we move forward into interstate and international marketing as well, and showcase, what Melbourne is great for. So on the website, it actually has these third-party e-commerce partners. You can see them down the bottom there, the Providore, Colab Pantry, and so on. And they actually then do the fulfillment of all of the goods. But there's been some really good response. In fact, to the point of actually having almost too many people trying to apply to, sell their wares online. But after the announcement last week, the Premier announced another $8.5 million to be injected into this campaign. That will continue to allow the campaign to run for pretty much towards the end of the year. And our hope is still that by start of December, before peak travel period for people during the holidays, that interstate borders to Victoria will open up and there'll be a little bit more movement, and again, stimulating more of that tourism economy within Victoria as well. So for us, you know, internationally, it's pretty difficult, let's be honest. Like, it's a challenging time for all of us. And I think at this rate, what we've been doing since March as a team, Amanda, Scott, and myself, is looking at what does our recovery plan look like? So strategically trying to figure out how to remain ready, how to use trends and insights of the who will travel, when will they travel, how will they travel, obviously without knowing parameters of when borders will open and so on. But definitely not just sitting back and doing nothing. I think we're really trying to look at what are the things that we can do now? What are the things that we can do in the medium term when the restart happens? So say an announcement happens with international borders, we need to be ready with inspirational content. You know, we're going back out to market to get a public relations company for those services that will hopefully start at in January next year. So we're trying to bring back some of those things that we really need to do in terms of keeping the momentum going for Australia. And, you know, our view of this is that out of any dark period in travel, there's always, you know, bright spots and ways that we can look at this as an opportunity. And I think it does that. You know, it allows us to have a clean slate and look at marketing that has been, you know, done within this organization for the past 5 or 10 years and say, is that really where we need to play? Is that making a difference? And allows us to just set a new benchmark for what we want to achieve. So we know that we're going to have to continue to inspire people at the moment. We're going to be looking at prioritizing airline support. How is that going to look? You know, going from 23 direct services to none at the moment is pretty devastating, because we're on a good path with all of that. But, you know, when airlines do decide to come back and fly into Melbourne, or even if they are connecting through other cities, we'll be there to support that. And obviously for all of you, we want to provide as much support as we can. So that's how we're trying to remain focused in what our job and responsibility is to not only you guys, but also our partners back home. So I think, you know, it's one of those things where we're trying to say, toss out the playbook. You know, there's lots of antiquated ways to look at selling Australia. And we think that, you know, Melbourne that is hovering between second and third most visited destination in Australia for North Americans, that, you know, it's time for us to consider things a little bit differently, you know, go out as aggressively as we can against other competing destinations, not domestically, but internationally, and really showcase the value of what Victoria has to offer. And I think part of that is about regional. So, you know, obviously going to urban centres may be, you know, a little bit more maligned perhaps for people coming out of COVID. We know that will come back over time, but for now, you know, we want to follow those trends and say for people to head regional. And there's many of these destinations that we talk about, Great Ocean Road being one of them, Phillip Island, even Mornington and Yarra. But, you know, there's lots of great new products, adventure-based products out in the Grampians, you know, through Ballarat, which is changing immensely year on year and becoming a really amazing destination in its own right, with, you know, lots of amazing new restaurants and, you know, bakeries and craft businesses out there as well, and beautiful accommodation. So these are all areas where we feel like regional overnight stays is definitely something we need to be pursuing and pushing a little bit more, certainly as we come out of COVID, and looking at, you know, the groups of people that we think are going to be traveling first. So you can be sure to be seeing a few more regional images and messaging coming up from us over time. And I think there's these other notions of like flipping the script. You know, we always, you know, when people going into Melbourne, it's easy to say, right, get off the flight, go straight into Melbourne, get to your hotel, you know, that half-day city sites tour. And then we all know that jet lag wall creeps in. But we want to look at things a little bit differently too. So looking at they're coming all this way, why not send them out somewhere regional and have them do a spa experience or a winery lunch, you know, get that fresh regional air, meet local people, you know, in a natural environment where, you know, they can relax and really rejuvenate and spend a day or two out there before throwing the sneakers on and coming into the city. So again, through our education and training, which we've been doing quite a bit of over the past few months, it's certainly something we're trying to, you know, change the lens of how Victoria is sold and looks. And to do that, we have lots of resources that we can provide you as well. So Amanda did an amazing job working with the head office on these infographics on the left-hand side about wine, wildlife, coffee, AFL football even. When that was one of the only sports being shown in America, we had to try and tell people what it was all about. And obviously Melbourne, we've had many of our industry record these 10-minute webinars that we've put into a database online. We can send you the link after this so that you can review that at any point. It's something we expect to build as we go through things like Marketplace with 37 products coming from Victoria. We want to continue to build that and evolve that so that at any point you guys have a resource to go and look to perhaps expand your product offering, or if you have reservation agents that aren't quite sure what this tour company can offer, they've got these great recorded new webinars, a trade manual that fills out all the extra details that they may need, and things like fact sheets, you know, any social content requirements that you have, that we are able to support with if you're looking to get messages out there for Melbourne. And then, you know, on our content hub, there's obviously tens of thousands of images, and it's pretty, you know, it's not the best in terms of having to find exactly what you're looking for. But please use, you know, Amanda and myself as resources. If you ever need any needs for content, or you want to refresh your pages with some great new shots of the 12 Apostles, or some of these that you can see for areas that, you know, have been promoted less in North America, but we certainly will be pushing them. You know, please do reach out. We're happy to collate light boxes and help you along that path of rejuvenating and refreshing during this time where, you know, the opportunity to actually be selling is limited. So I think that's really our message, is we're still here trying to support you as best we can. You know, as we move through into, you know, borders reopening and so on, we'll be getting a lot busier with the activity that we're putting out there from a paid perspective, but we're always here to help you guys navigate these tough times, and appreciate your support in return for everything you do for not just Victoria, but all of Australia. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for that update, Dave. Really comprehensive, and I'm sure everyone was happy to hear from you on what's the latest and greatest down in Victoria. So everyone, just a quick reminder, if you do have any questions for Dave or Ernst, who's coming up, or for any of the TA team on this webinar today, please pop them in the Q&A box, and then we'll come back to those at the end. But I'm now happy to introduce Ernst. He's the Regional Director for the Americas for South Australia Tourism. And we'll hear from him now. So over to you, Ernst.
Okay, terrific. Thanks, Chris. So I'm just going to try and share my screen here. All right. Sorry, my hot dog thumbs are giving me a bit of a problem here. Okay. So thanks everybody for joining, for the opportunity to update on what's going on with South Australia. No doubt it's been a challenging year for South Australia, as it has been for the entire country, but you know, out of great challenges come great opportunities. We're looking ahead. So I just want to use this time to give you some updates on what's going on, just from a COVID perspective, but also looking ahead to some of the product that you're going to meet at the marketplace. So with COVID, yeah, it's the talk of everybody. And in South Australia right now, we've had 466 cases and 4 deaths, and that's been pretty steady now for several days. So it's been handled quite well, and you know, as a result, I think the economy there has been holding up quite well. But knowing that travelers and consumers still have concerns about safety, obviously, the SATC and the South Australian government put a lot of measures and policies in place to help ensure that the travel experience is not only safe, but it's understood to be safe. So there's some programs in place like COVID Safe, which is a training program, COVID Marshals, which is just to ensure that every organization has somebody trained to kind of ensure that the policies are being followed and act as a point person. And then there's a COVID-19 aware certification for tourism businesses. Again, just to reassure those travelers that they are safe and they will be safe. In recent days, the South Australian government has done some interesting things. One was announcing a $20 million grant fund for tourism businesses. And that's intended for accommodations and for operators to refinish their business, to refurbish it, and just be better prepared for when the borders fully open. Domestically, pleased to say that South Australia is open to all the states now, with the exception of Victoria. New South Wales was announced yesterday, so it'll open actually up today. And of course, Western Australia, Tasmania, Northern Territories, Queensland, and ACT are open as well. That means no quarantine requirements. And we're looking forward to Victoria opening shortly, we hope. This was announced yesterday. So the Great State Voucher Campaign, it's an initiative by the SATC with the support of the government. And the intent is to really encourage that domestic travel. And the South Australian government's done a number of things. There was a program earlier on called SATV, again, to stimulate domestic travel. And this is kind of phase 2 of that. And the intent is to get people to travel, stay in a hotel, enjoy it. And of course, with that comes spill spend into other areas of the hospitality industry, restaurants and attractions. So with the Adelaide hotels, every resident of South Australia is being offered a $100 voucher. So they can apply that towards one night's or any night stay at Adelaide Hotel, and if to encourage visitation in the regions, there's a slightly lower voucher at $50. And that's just starting to unroll this week with travel intending to occur from October 15th to December 11th. And again, this is intended to provide a short-term boost to the economy in South Australia. Now, as far as our plans go for the South Australian Tourism Commission in the Americas, in the short to midterm, really, it's first and foremost about staying engaged. So we're aligning very closely with Tourism Australia and Team Australia as a whole, just to stay top of mind and keep informed. And of course, we're keeping you, our travel trade partners, informed and we hope inspired. We've been doing a lot of showcases, webinars, and so on. And we really appreciate your interest, commentary back to us on this, because it's been really good. As well, we're staying in touch with our media, again, informing, inspiring, and through them, keeping South Australia in the minds of consumers for when travel comes back. And looking ahead, it's about being prepared. So just monitoring those market conditions, realizing now we're probably moving into more of an anticipation stage. So making sure we have that right messaging out there. And it's also keeping our suppliers back in Adelaide and South Australia informed and inspired. I mean, they have had a difficult year, and it's really important to them. It means so much to them when they're able to talk to you and really hear what's going on in the market and share what's developed with them. So going ahead, we believe that our WOW positioning, the wildlife, the outback, and wine products, it's going to be more relevant than ever. So we don't plan to deviate from that positioning. And our product is really coming along as well. So perhaps most significantly is what's coming up in the accommodation world. We are going to be welcoming more than 24 new hotels over the next few years. And that's including brands managed by Accor, Event Hospitality, Wyndham, Hyatt, Sky City Entertainment, as well as a lot of private brands. Sofitel is going to be opening in 2021. We have the Hyatt Regency in 2022. Westin Adelaide in 2022. The Adelaide Oval Hotel opens later this year. And of course, you've heard a lot about Sequoia and Mount Lofty House opening this year as well. So there's a lot going on with accommodation, and you'll hear more about this as these different properties start opening the doors. Now, for those of you who are going to be attending the virtual marketplace in a couple of weeks, we're really looking forward to that. We have 26 South Australian suppliers attending there. And for us, that is more than we've ever had at a marketplace. So it's great. And you'll see a lot of the usual suspects there, but there are 5 new ones that are going to be there. I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce them a bit too. So for those of you who are attending marketplace, you aren't walking in totally cold. So the first new one will be Kangaroo Island Tourism, Food, Wine, and Beverages Association. And what they're there to do is just provide more detail on the food and wine providers and experiences on the island, and really how that integrates into the tourism experience. We also have One Kangaroo Island, which is a 5-star property that has opened up recently, and it's 2 5-bedroom retreats which offer an all-inclusive experience with breakfast and a chef-prepared meal inside your villa. We also have Ocean View Eco Villas. These are 2 2-bedroom suites on the Nepean Bay, 5-star all-inclusive, and their point of difference is they really take a lot of pride in their sustainability and their commitment to the environment. And for those of you who've toured with Craig Wickham at Exceptional Kangaroo Island, you may know the owner, Tim. He's a former guide of Craig's, and he and his wife, his longtime residents of Kangaroo Island, just wanted to take their love of sharing the hospitality to a new level with Ocean View Eco Villas. We also will have Arkarula Wilderness Sanctuary there, and this is a wilderness sanctuary ranges. It's owned by a family, the Sprigg family, and they take great pride in showing off their abundant wildlife, the stargazing opportunities, and a lot of certified ecotourism itineraries they have on offer. And then the last new one is Earth Adventure. It's a soft adventure company based out of Adelaide, and they're not aiming for a premium audience. It's more of an accessible small group touring company that offers half-day and full-day tours from Adelaide, and they would do things like take you kayaking through the dolphin sanctuary just outside Adelaide, or take you to the Flory Peninsula for some hiking and some food and wine explorations. So all of these people, all these experiences, and all 26 South Australian suppliers are looking forward to that marketplace and sharing what's going on. And of course, I'm here at any time. If you have any questions or any comments, I look forward to engaging with you. And again, thank you for all your support. So with that, I'll turn it back to Chris to do the Q&As.
Great, thanks so much, Ernst, for the update. That's great. I'm going to invite Dave back now if he's there. There he is. So guys, just a reminder, if you've got any questions, we're going to be on here for another 2 or 3 minutes. So if you do have any questions for Dave or Ernst, or Jane or myself, please pop them in there. One question I have for both of you is, can you maybe just give everyone an update in terms of the sentiment that you're hearing from industry in each of your respective states at the moment? I know things are, particularly for you, Dave, it's been probably a bit trickier lately for your operators, but yeah, it'd be good maybe just to have a quick update on kind of sentiment from our partners down there, if you guys are happy to share.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Anne, so I'll jump in real quick. Yeah, I mean, it differs because it really depends on, the business they've got, where their mix of business comes from. I mean, some of those that are heavily reliant, the 80-90% on international, obviously, there's very little that they can do in order to, run a private day tour at $1,000 per person is just not, it's just not going to happen with the domestic market. And obviously, regional tourism and so on, it's been so restricted that no one's really been able to move around. But, over the course of time, not being able to get those midweek stays and those international visitors coming out to region and spending actual real money is going to be devastating. So it follows a lot of what ATEC is saying about, where the sentiment is and how reliant the industry is on international tourism. And as an example, along the Great Ocean Road, one of the most impacted businesses, couldn't even necessarily call them a tourism business, is the Port Campbell General Store, which sounds super weird, but 90% of their business comes from international visitors coming on tours, and they stop at the general store and spend money. So it affects people all the way down. And I think, look, JobKeeper really has been able to allow the touring companies and some of the other companies to retain staff. And I think that's critical on both sides of the fence, up here as well. But how long can that be sustained? How long is that going to last? I know that there was lots of lobbying to get that pushed through to March, but without knowing when borders are going to open, I think it's the longevity that's going to impact people. And that seems to be the sentiment that's coming through of like, just not sure how much longer they can really hold out without, turning any revenue through. So it is really challenging. Like I said, we haven't really seen a huge amount of attrition in terms of companies putting their hand up and saying, we're out now. But I'm just not too sure, based on the conversations that we've had, that we've seen the full effects of that just yet.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Yeah, in South Australia, I think it's excuse me, it's similar. I think a lot of the suppliers obviously had a tough time earlier on, but now as the domestic borders have opened up, it's become a little more optimistic. In some cases, many of the hoteliers and property owners have said, their business is as good as it ever was right now. But similar to what Dave said, a lot of the touring operators, it's not a product that is meant for the domestic audience. But there is, I think, just a renewed sense of optimism that the domestic activity is starting to happen. And a lot of the operators have used this opportunity to take another look at their business and use the downtime to prepare for when things come back. And I think the attitude of everybody has been rightly so, that it's not if travel's coming back, it's just when. So prepare for that and use this time that for your advantage.
And we've certainly seen a lot of products looking at our market, because it is a mature market that has shown resilience in the past, coming out of things like this, to say, they might have been geared more towards Eastern markets for a long period of time, but now looking at, larger group travel and saying, well, that's probably not going to be something that's going to come back, overly quickly. So they're now taking a look at this market. So it opens up opportunities for more diversity for us, which is really important, particularly regionally. So, as I said earlier, out of sometimes these dark times comes opportunity. So I think you'll see for those going to marketplace, some of those products, entering and dabbling and changing the way their product looks to actually cater to the North American market.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks you guys. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think I know TA we're definitely gearing up to get re-supporting the domestic tourism restart again at the appropriate time, hopefully in the not too distant future, as once we get all the borders back open. And I think particularly for Victoria, everyone's really rooting for Victoria at the minute and making sure that that comes under control. So I think Victoria seems to be heading in the right direction, which is awesome to see. So
the SWAT team members out of the Victoria markets and so on.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. It's not a good look.
Yeah. Cool. Well, awesome. Hey, well, we haven't had any questions come through, and I'm guessing that's because everyone on the call today is really connected with you guys anyway. So I'm sure they're not too shy to show if they have any specific questions for you guys. So just before I wrap up, thanks again, Ernst and Dave, for joining us today and providing that update. That's been really informative and helpful, I'm sure, to everyone on the call. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
So just in terms of wrapping up quickly, so just a reminder that we will be having another one of these webinars taking place next week, same time, same place. So Tuesday, September 29th. That will be at 1 o'clock Pacific time, 4 p.m. for Eastern time. Next week, we're going to be joined by colleagues from Western Australia and Tourism Tasmania, who will provide similar updates for their states to what Dave and Ernst have shared with us today. Look out for further information over the coming weeks in regards to the Tourism Australia broader market update. For any of you that don't happen to be joining our marketplace event, I've just been having a quick scan through who's joining the call today. I think most people are joining marketplace later in next month, so we look forward to seeing you there. And as always, if you guys have any questions for Tourism Australia, please reach out to me, Jane, or Glenn or Liam, and we'll be very happy to facilitate any questions that you might have. But with that, we'll close off the webinar today, short and sweet for this one. So we appreciate those updates, Dave and Ernst, and as always, we continue to wish everyone to be safe and well at this time, and we look forward to seeing you virtually very soon and in person sooner than that, hopefully. So thanks so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.